I'm a bulldog, so Georgia who I'm picking. I love the family atmosphere.
What's up, DawgNation? It is another edition of Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. If you're just joining us for the first time, hello, first-timer. This program is all about Georgia football recruiting, essentially about the young men that are on their way to the University of Georgia before they get between those hallowed hedges. Of course, this is recruiting, so there's always potential. There's always commitments. There's always strong verbal, soft verbal, silent commitments, and all that. What I would like for you to do today is make a commitment to watch Before the Hedges. Here we're going to talk about Ryan Montgomery, maybe rethinking Ryan Montgomery. We're going to have a very impressive official visitor list to tout out. It's the last weekend in May or the first weekend in June. Kirby Smart always lines up his best potential recruiting weekend for that first one out of the gate. It's kind of been a tradition over the last few years. And this visit list, which will be, those guys will start getting in town on Friday, does not disappoint. So many big names there. Also, we're going to drop something you guys have never seen before. It is the earliest watch list for a class in Before the Hedges history. You want to know who are the guys that we feel like it seems like are the top targets in the 2026 cycle. We're going to breeze through maybe 10, 11 names we need to know. You guys need to know for the 2026 class. We're going to hear from Ryan Montgomery's trainer. And also, it would not be a Before the Hedges without a DawgNation conversation. And we've got one this evening with four-star North Carolina edge priority target Bryce Davis. Sound like a show? Sounds like some fun on a Wednesday night? Sure it does. Let's check it out right now. And again, this is kind of the DawgNation lead story. It is essentially the names you guys want to know about for the official visitors for the first recruiting weekend in June. Of course, it starts on May 31st, but it will continue on until June the 2nd, and Georgia is going to land. It's going to feel a little bit in the recruiting sphere, a little bit like Masters weekend in Augusta, that private airfield there when everybody starts landing the jets. Well, Kirby and Georgia's recruiting staff and its coaching staff, they're going to start landing the 5 stars as well. Check it out right here. Take a look at this list right now, and these are your official visitors, May 31st through June 2nd. Starting out, you've got Elias Williams, the 5-star tight end out of Kingsland, Camden County. Georgia commitments, you're going to see a lot of fields here on this list. You're going to see basically you've got Elias Williams starting off, Zayden Walker out of Schley County in Ellaville, Georgia. Isaiah Gibson out of Warner Robins, currently a USC commitment. He is going to be in Athens this weekend. He's just back after checking out the dogs for the scavenger hunt weekend a couple weeks ago. Taylon Taylor out of Geneva, Illinois. Final 3, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Georgia. Jaden Perlotti, the longtime commitment at linebacker out of Buford High. He's going to be in town. Travis Smith Jr., another guy who was just in Athens 2 weekends ago for the scavenger hunt. If you guys remember last week's Before the Hedges, he told us it was his best visit to Georgia ever, his number one visit. The edge, Darren Akinabon. And what Georgia tries to do there, you see a lot of UGA commitments right there. They want to basically stack up the commitments, kind of like Cord Wood, the way everybody in the recruiting sphere knows Kirby Smart likes to stack up those 5 stars. They get a lot of invested, plugged-in Georgia recruits around some of their very top targets, and they expect the synergy, they expect the tractor beam, so to speak, for all these big-time targets to come out and play for the Dogs and really walk away from that weekend thinking they have to commit to the G, they have to be a Dog. This is a long list. This is kind of going to feel like the Before the Hedges version of Leonard Skinner's Freebird. If you guys, for our seasoned veteran visitors right there, seasoned veteran audience members right there. So there's page 1. Let's scroll forward to page 2. And again, Juan Gaston Jr., another undecided target. Those two from Westlake High School are going to be there. You've got QB1. You've got the quarterback commitment in the class, Ryan Montgomery. We're going to have a whole lot there with Ryan. to discuss there, the Georgia commitment. Chris Ewald Jr., cornerback out of Hollywood, Florida. Some of these guys, like Ewald's a great example. He's not on the top targets list, but I think Georgia can get itself in the mix and maybe move up the medal stand with a guy like Chris Ewald. Nick Brooks, he's out in Iowa right now. He's the one with, I believe, 17 siblings. Grew up in the Atlanta area, spent some of his high school years at Buford High School. A little bit of cup of coffee there at Buford. He was also at St. Francis Academy. He's expected in town. Mason Short, the Georgia on my mind commitment out of Evans, Georgia, working really hard on David Sanders Jr. and Zaire Addison. And then you've got one of the anchor commitments of the entire class, Ethan Barbour, hashtag throw to the tight end. Now he's at Milton, Georgia. He's a Georgia commitment, and this is a weekend where Ethan Barbour is going to try to put up numbers like a pinball machine on his tally for trying to get guys to commit to the G. He's competing with that last name right there, Bo Walker, the Georgia commitment at running back. Omarion Robinson, that's another talented safety out of Arkansas. Michael Carroll, really impressive interior offensive lineman out of Pennsylvania. He's undecided, and also is that big man out of Greene County, Greensboro, Georgia, Kevin Wynn. So you look at these names, 3 pages of names. Will they get commitments from all those? No. You don't want Georgia to get commitments from all those guys because they've got similar tiered weekends on June the 7th, June the 14th, June the 21st, where they're really trying to put together, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be 85% of the high school recruiting class Georgia's going to host in June, and they're going to try to get them to commit in in late June, and then July, and then early August before the season starts. That is what everybody in the business and everybody in the industry says is go time for Georgia football recruiting. All right, so that is a huge one. Again, all these names are subject to change, but at the time of this show taping, this is when you're going to see what looks like the RSVP list, the alpha list for the first major recruiting weekend in June. Of course, Georgia did an amazing job with the first unofficial, really major official, unofficial visit weekend during the scavenger hunt. All right, so that's one. Moving on to number 2, like we promised in the beginning of the show, we usually try to drop a top targets list for the following class, usually November, late November, early December, while the current class is signing. But you know what? We understand the way the models work. We understand the way things go. Never too much, never too soon, never too early to start recruiting. And that's what we're talking about here. Check out these names right here. And we almost needed a lot of pages for this one as well. But you've got guys here that we have identified kind of have, and we're not numbering them. They're just kind of sorted here and classified here in terms of their high school ranking. But you see a lot of names right here already. Jackson Cantwell, the #1 offensive tackle in the country. Kendra Harrison. You guys remember that story at G-Day a couple years ago when Darnell Washington and everyone got their rings for that first national championship? Well, Georgia tight ends coach Todd Hartley offered Kendra Harrison, 6'7" tight end, right there on the grounds of Dooley Field. It was a very powerful moment in Kendra's recruiting. He said he'll never forget it. And then on that same day, he fashioned and forged a relationship with Darnell Washington, a tight end that was going in the career of football where Kendra Harrison wants to go. But hold on, not so fast here. The other really interesting dynamic about Kendra is Kendra is rated among the top 15 to 20 basketball players in the country as well. So you've got a top 10 overall prospect, a #1 tight end, but also you have a nationally known kind of 5-star level basketball player as well. So you got Kendra Harrison right there out of Reidsville, North Carolina. Next name everybody knows, Tyler Atkinson out of Grayson High School. I think he's going to end up with 800 and 900 tackles in his high school career out of Grayson High School, rated as the #1 linebacker, #8 overall prospect. Georgia is in his final group. He established the top 10 a while back. Jordan Carter out of Douglas County, effort player to the extreme. Are his measurables elite? No. but is his ball get off? Is his want to? Is his motor? Is that magnet he has in his head for the football? Is all that elite? Yeah, that's everything right there with Jordan Carter. Next up is Ikine Ogboko. That is the younger brother of Georgia freshman nose guard Nnamdi Ogboko out of Durham, North Carolina, South Garner High School. Turns out his younger brother is already a lot taller and a lot more highly rated. So Georgia kind of has a very impressive vantage point on his younger brother's recruitment. He came up for Nnamdi's official visits. He came up for the spring game. So he's going to see a lot of Georgia over the next couple of years, especially over the next upcoming season. And then obviously his senior season. Carrollton High School, another ascending program in the state of Georgia. Zila Six, the number 2 safety in the country, number 16 overall. Brock Harris, we mentioned Todd Hartley. We articulate on this show as much as we can how much Todd Hartley likes to work ahead in the next class. He was just in town to check out Georgia for the scavenger hunt as well. A name I'm really high on right here out of Gainesville, Georgia. Red Elephants raise up. It's been a while since we've actually never had a top target from Gainesville High School. That's a hat tip and a shout out there to Coach Josh Niblett and what he's doing with that program. Xavier Griffin has amazing burst speed off the edge. He's rated as a linebacker, but I think he's going to be an edge. I think Georgia sits well right there. His cousin is Malachi Starks, but Griffin is an Alabama native from, I believe, the Huntsville region. So Griffin is a guy that certainly shows up on a lot of film and shows up on a lot of game plan strategy. We hear about Griffin a lot from coaches around the state. Next up, Brandon Lockhart out of L.A. This is a Dante Williams special right here, and if we had more room for it on this list, we would have included that he's currently committed to USC. But, man, those dogs are really getting after it with that one. Brandon has came to see Georgia a bunch. He also plans to be back for a game this fall. And, again, that California connection here. Another name, somehow this list, and this is just Kirby Smart, living right, recruiting right, building his program right. Pierre Dean. Now, that name won't seem very familiar, but his older brother is the new center for Georgia, Jared Wilson, who's waited and waited and waited for his turn behind Cedric Von Granger. His older brother is a starting center. Very promising season up ahead for Jared Wilson. But Pierre Dean, very highly touted, very highly rated in the class of 2026. Pierre Dean out of Clemens, North Carolina. That's West Forsyth High School. And then you've got some royalty right here. Emmanuel Iheanacho. He's out of Rockville, Maryland, number 9 offensive tackle in the country, number 61 overall. Emmanuel, get this, it's one of these stories I can't wait to really flesh out and write in detail on DawgNation.com. But Emmanuel is from Nigeria, where his father is actually, I guess it would be a chief or a king of a village. And I asked Emmanuel, I was like, does that make you a prince? And he's like, yeah, kind of, I guess it does. So it's kind of like a reverse coming to America thing right there. Emmanuel is a prince back in Nigeria and his family right there. So interesting way to look at that class, very interesting way to look at that class when you're talking about 2026s that already have that kind of mutual connection between the University of Georgia and also the chance of how they feel about how they could maybe play their best football, maybe develop the best that they can with a connection that's already been established there in the class of 2026. Speaking of connection, guys, we have got another amazing event from DawgNation. You guys have heard of DawgNation Invasion. Well, there are going to be a bunch this year. There's going to be Tuscaloosa. There's going to be Austin, Texas. That's a game. I know everybody's already looking at those flight prices, trying to scurry and hunker down for some reservations in Austin, Texas. Well, there's a chance to partner with DawgNation. We have got a pretty good spot right here. You want to learn more about it, check it out right now Before the Hedges, your DawgNation Invasion trailer.
It's the biggest DawgNation road trip of the year, and you can be there with us. Georgia versus Texas in Austin, and we've got your seats. Enter now to win this VIP package from Atlanta Sports Trips. 2 tickets to the historic game, 2 nights hotel in Austin, passes to the DawgNation Friday night party with the UGA legend, and join us for our all-inclusive tailgate on game day. Go to DawgNation.com/tailgate for more details. That's DawgNation.com/tailgate. Contest ends June 5th, so enter now and join us for the DawgNation Invasion in Austin.
There you go, DawgNation Invasion in Austin. Cody Chafin's getting his bass in that voice to get Austin in there, and also for DawgNation. So, guys, if you haven't been to one of our invasions before, get on that website, enter that contest. We've been to Baton Rouge. We've been to South Beach. We've been to L.A. We've been to Knoxville. Who can forget last year on the riverboat right outside Neyland Stadium on the banks of the Tennessee River. Texas, guys, you want to talk about a Texas-sized tailgate, a Texas-sized DawgNation invasion? Well, we'll have that for you right there, and a really good chance to get in on something with DawgNation in one of our special events there. So I encourage you to not delay, do not tarry at all. Get in there, follow that, and get entered for that contest. And we hopefully will get a chance to see you guys out in Austin. Number 3, guys. It would not be a DawgNation Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger, without a DawgNation conversation. We went up to North Carolina. I was on that trip when I went to check out David Sanders Jr. in Providence Day School. Well, we drove another 95 miles up into the upstate of North Carolina to check out Grimsley High School's Bryce Davis. And Bryce is down to a final 3 of Duke, Clemson, and Georgia. Very interesting to see Duke in there, but Bryce Davis does have a 4.25 GPA, so that sort of makes a lot of sense there, doesn't it? You've got Bryce Davis. He's going to make his decision on July the 20th. You want to know what's going on with him in Georgia right now? You want to know how he feels about the Dogs and Chidera Uzo-Diribe, his potential position coach? I bet you're curious to want to find out what color, what kind of gloves he was wearing at practice this week. Well, check it out. All the answers are right here in this DawgNation conversation. Bryce Davis, 2025 edge, maybe a little bit of D-end target for a lot of schools. I got to ask, I guess the news of the week, because you had a visitor from a Georgia coach, from Georgia coach yesterday, I believe.
Yes, sir.
What was that like? What was Uzo in town for?
I mean, just to come and see me get after him in practice, it was great. He planned to come tomorrow so he could kind of spend more time with me, but they called like a meeting, so he couldn't. He had to come down yesterday, but it was definitely good. He gave me some good tips on how to keep working on my pass rush and my run, just exploding up holes in the run game too. So it was really good to learn from him.
What's it like with that guy? Have you already reached kind of an easy connection with him already?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's been really easy, especially Jamal's down there as well. But Coach Diribe, he just makes it easy. He's an easy guy to talk to. You know what I'm saying? So I'll hit him up, he'll hit me up, and just have a good conversation about anything. He's a younger guy too, so it's just real easy to talk to him and ask him about anything. So
he's like what, 10 years, 15 years older than you? How?
Yes, sir, yeah. Probably.
I think he's like 30, something like that.
Yes, sir.
You set a July 20th date. Is that still the date? Are you sticking strong with that?
Yes, sir. That's the date.
How do you feel about it getting closer?
It's really kind of let me wind down a little bit, with my decision day coming closer and closer. It's just really how I went through the whole process, how overwhelming it kind of got for me, but just really narrowing down on my schools and then getting ready to make this decision. It's kind of giving me a little breath of fresh air almost. Sure.
Is it almost like you want that 450 pounds off your back on the squat rack after a while?
Almost, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But it's all been a blessing, though, at the end of the day.
Bryce, what do you want people to know about you? Obviously, people start and they get an introduction to you based on your ranking, based on your schools and your offers. But, when people really start to think about you, Bryce Davis, what do you want people to know about you?
I mean, definitely, I'm not just a football player. You know what I'm saying? I'm much more than that. My parents raised me to be much more than that. And I'm passionate about what I do, and that's football right now, but I'm passionate about a lot of other things. I like to watch anime, you know what I'm saying? I like to spend time with family. I'm a family person, and I'm a hard worker. At heart, anything that I do, I'm going to work hard at it. So I think that's the main thing. I just want people to know I'm a hard worker. So.
And remember, you told me how I do anything is how I do everything. Bryce, for you, I don't know if you know where you want to go yet, but do you know what you want out of the right college fit?
I talk a lot about this with my parents, just when I started my recruiting process, it was the non-negotiables that I wanted. And throughout my whole process has been the family atmosphere, the development, and education. Those are the non-negotiables. And I think the 3 schools that I pretty much have nailed down can offer that to me. So.
Let's talk Georgia, I guess. Obviously, you're probably in the process now. Every time you talk to Coach Duribe, or every time you visit Georgia, you're like, could this be it? Could I see myself there? How do you feel about Georgia as a potential fit for you?
I mean, I really love Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Having a teammate there that can really that's really transparent with me as well, it helps too, because, you know, in this little recruiting thing, it can kind of get shady as well. But I love how the coaches, the people that have always been transparent with me, they reach out to me all the time, and I've built a really strong relationship with pretty much everybody over there. So that helps out a lot.
Who else do you talk to besides Uzo? Have you talked to Kirby yet? Have you talked to?
Sure. Talked to Coach Smart, Coach Hudson, Coach Breaker Hudson. I talked to Coach Scott.
Oh, wow.
Talked to Coach Shu, Coach T-Rod, Miss Christina. I talked to a lot of people over there. David Cooper. You know, so it's just I've got a lot of relationships over there, and that's helped out a lot.
Coop's a funny guy.
Yeah.
Bryce, has your order stayed the same? I know you're going to visit Clemson first on the 31st. What does your official visit path go from there?
Clemson May 31st, Duke June 7th, and Georgia June 14th.
June 14th. You're going to see those 3, huh?
Yes, sir.
Are you in a Final 3 zone? Can we label it that? Or?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's my last 3. So.
What do you think it will ultimately come down to? I talked to David Sanders yesterday, and he said probably 75% of it is what I've known up to this point, the relationships, the fit, and then maybe the official visit might be 5% of the decision and how clicky it was and how the vibe was. What about for you? What do you think it's going to come down to?
I mean, I've visited these places a multitude of times, so I mean, I've got that feel and things like that. I learned about them. I learned a lot about the schools and relationships. So right now, it's going to be that gut feeling and prayer. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I can succeed at any 3 of those places. So it's really just prayer, my family with me, and things like that, and that gut feeling. So, yes, sir.
Bryce, you got a nickname? What do your whirlies call you?
Just Bryce. Now, my real name is Bryson, so it's just Bryce. Yeah, yes, sir. Just Bryce.
Obviously, I feel for you when you told me your junior year was cut short due to an injury. First question, how do you feel coming back from that? And 2, do you feel like you kind of got unfinished business and you got to cram like 2 years into 1 here with your senior year?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, dealing with that injury, it allowed me to see a lot of things in a different perspective, different lens almost, you know, like Coach Brown preaches to us all the time, don't take things for granted, but you don't really understand that until it happens to you know what I'm saying? So I played 2 games last year, couldn't help my team in the fourth round of the playoffs, so that hurt watching everybody play. So I definitely have unfinished business, so I'm coming up here with a chip on my shoulder, and the fact that people don't think our school is where we need to be right now, it gives everybody a chip on our shoulder, and I just want to be that guy to lead us. So.
How do you feel you're better? You know, if you look at a 2023 truck and then compare it to the 2024 truck, the 2024 truck's got some new upgrades, new bells and whistles. How are you better for this final season?
I mean, I think I'm bigger, faster, stronger, all of that. But I think my main thing is the way I go about the game now, like mentally as well. You know what I'm saying? Just the way that the defense that I'm played in the defense allows me to just really dissect. I got to really dissect the offense and help other people out. So it's really going to be the mental part of the game that I think I'll strive at this year.
Bryce, this football game gets tough. I know it gets hot up here in North Carolina like it does in Georgia. When times get tough and you have to dig down and think about why you play this great game, for you, what's your why?
I mean, definitely. I know we had a conversation about it before, just like my dad preached to me and my brother when we were younger, like, if you're going to do something, be great at it. So this is my passion right now. This is what I'm doing right now. So I only got one option, and that's to be great at it. So that's why I keep on going. That's why I do. That's why I train as much as I do. That's why I work as hard as I do, because I want to be great at it.
Do you have any questions left for Georgia on your official that you need checked out? Sounds like you got a pretty good backstory on all things dog.
I mean, definitely. I know my parents have some questions they need to ask them. I mean, but I know I've built a strong relationship with a lot of people at Georgia, so it's not too many unanswered questions that I have. Like I said, it's that gut feeling. You know what I'm saying? If it really feels like home, if that's the fit for me, then that's where I'll go. So,
Bryce, almost done here. I feel like it's weird I have to ask this question now in this day and age, because I have to learn a lot about it too, about what kids think. NIL, is that like a slice of pizza of your decision? Is it big? Do you look at you look at it as maybe the most important decision is what kind of football player you'll be in 2028 and not 2025. Like, how do you view NIL, and is it a piece of your process?
I mean, it definitely is a piece of the process. It's not about the money, but it is. You know what I'm saying? It's a part of the game now. So that's not what I focused on. Like I said, that wasn't non-negotiable, but it's a part of the game, and I've worked as hard as I did for a reason. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You get what you're worth, and whatever I'm worth at those schools, that's fine. But that's not going to be the end of my decision. That's not the end-all, be-all for me at all.
Bryce, when you think about Georgia, what comes to your mind? Is it a visit? Is it a funny story with Deribe? Is it hanging with Coop? Like, what comes to your mind when you think of Georgia?
I mean, definitely just being down there, sitting in the meeting rooms, you know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, we went down there last time. We were down there, like, it was just a light day for practices for them. They won't be in anything for too long, but I was in a meeting room for about an hour and about 20 minutes. That was the longest I was ever in a meeting room, and that was supposed to be on a light day. So, like, that definitely speaks volume to me about what it means to go play at a place like that, what it takes to really be one of the great programs that they are. So, I mean, that speaks volume for me and about how hard they work. So,
Bryce Davis, Grimsley High School. He's a whirly, kind of like his old teammate Jamal Jarrett, up here in Greensboro. Hey, man, Bryce, thanks a lot for spending some time with us today.
Sure, I appreciate you for coming.
Thanks, man. So there you have it, Bryce Davis, guys. Watching that video, I guess what goes through your mind? First of all, 4.25 GPA, that really stands out right there. Obviously, it's funny we started talking about anime in the midst of that. We actually had to edit that segment down a little bit because in the midst of that, Bryce and I were talking for about 3 minutes about anime. And hey, I'm guilty of anime fans. Certain animes, my kids obviously have gotten me into anime a lot, and you'd be really surprised. I don't know if this is the type of intel you guys come here for, but you'd be really surprised how much football players, even college football players, even professional football players, they are already into anime and that whole type of, culture, storytelling, archetypes for a different type of hero for today's, for anybody, because, I mean, I know a lot of adults that are also into anime too. Quick things there. You listen to Bryce Davis, and it's like, man, this guy sounds like he loves Georgia. It sounds like a guy that Georgia usually takes. You saw his smile when he started talking about Georgia. He had the Georgia gloves on during practice, and that is a throwaway, a factoid in recruiting, but can't hurt, doesn't hurt. But when you combine the gloves with maybe how he smiles when talking about Georgia, that certainly bodes well for the Dogs. Again, his decision is on July the 20th. And a little side note there, Grimsley High School, we mentioned in the piece there that Jamal Jarrett, the sophomore defensive tackle, he's from that high school. So there's a kinship there. He's got a really good sounding board about all things Georgia. Jamal obviously loves his time at Georgia, and he's been able to tell Bryce about that as well. But now listen, I've probably been to, I don't know, conservatively 600 high schools in my reporting career probably. And Grimsley High School is a little different. Like, first of all, their mascot is essentially a tornado. But they clean it up. They call it the Whirlies. But, like, you see Whirlies everywhere. You see Whirly paraphernalia. Their G actually on their helmets and a lot of their logos and signage is actually the Georgia Power G. So much like Jamal Jarrett from 2 cycles ago, we'll have to wait and see until July to see if Bryce Davis still keeps the same logo or one of the school's logos for the team he plays for right there. That would be potentially either Clemson, Duke, or the University of Georgia. Hope you guys enjoyed that DawgNation conversation right there. Next up, and this is kind of, if we didn't have the review of a very big, I mean, this weekend, guys, for official visits is up there. Like the Arch Manning one that they had with Justice Haynes a couple years back, and then last year what Georgia did with a lot of its priority targets as well. Dylan Raiola, guys like that. Kirby just loads them up because he wants that first one to be the A1A weekend. But if not for this pressing news kind of previewing that weekend, we got a whole lot of stuff to talk about with Ryan Montgomery. This is what this is our 4th segment right here in our Big Five right here. And I call it kind of rethinking Ryan Montgomery because, well, first of all, Ryan kind of got this reputation that, he was a film rat, he was a gym rat, he was an overachiever, like his intangibles are why Georgia, and he was good enough, and Georgia took him when he wasn't the first choice or second choice maybe in the 2025 class at quarterback. And I guess because of that, the narrative out there, I think, is a little skewed. So as we wrote recently on DawgNation.com, man, Ryan is performing. Ryan is elevating that stock. I'll give you some examples. Number one, he went to the Elite 11 Regional at State College in Pennsylvania. Our friend Matt Zollers was there, the guy that maybe was a little higher up. Maybe he was the guy that Georgia would have accepted his commitment a little bit earlier in the cycle, but he chose Missouri. Well, Ryan was there, and Ryan and Matt both came out of that with Elite 11 invitations. That's a big deal, guys. If you just joining Before the Hedges, it's really like the Elite 11 is like a quarterback derby where 22 of the nation's top quarterbacks all get together. Sometimes they're out on the beach. Sometimes they do a lot of yoga, but they talk all things quarterback. It is a quarterback fraternity, like the who's who of quarterbacks that have been picked in the first round. They have Elite 11 all over their resume. So Ryan was named to that event, but he did so with two more interesting details. Number one, he was about 75% because he has a grade 2 turf toe injury. What that basically means, his trainer told me, was like, imagine trying to run around and throw a football with ingrown toenails in your plant foot. So Ryan wasn't at his best. He really didn't get a chance to practice rollouts at all. And then Ryan ends up qualifying for the Elite 11. Here's a very interesting part to kind of add that up another notch. 24/7 Sports and On3 had their national evaluators, and they look at all these camps, and out of that, they have either an alpha or a top performer. And both of those national services rated Ryan Montgomery higher. Well, they rated him the number one prospect at the camp, the alpha, the most outstanding camper at that event. And guys, just a quick reminder, Matt Zoller is a guy that's higher rated than Ryan Montgomery, was at that event, and Ryan Montgomery was just more impressive. So that's something to file away there with Ryan Montgomery, how maybe everybody needs to start rethinking Ryan Montgomery. Again, maybe I saw this piece of video was sent to me recently, and I wanted to share it with you guys. This is Findlay High School. This is in Ohio, and that's just not any quarterback trainer right there. DawgNation, you'll have to forgive the yellow shirt, but those are his school colors. But you see that guy right there? That's Ben Roethlisberger, who also is an alumnus of Findlay High School in Findlay, Ohio. And Ben held the single-season passing record until last year when Ryan just threw for a staggering amount of yards, I think 500 approximate yards, broke that record. Well, Ryan got a chance. This is, I believe it was a year ago. Ryan, or maybe it was earlier, he got a chance to work out with Ben Roethlisberger. And it's pretty cool right there. You see Ryan, you see some of the things we're talking about. He's got an NFL quarterback there watchdogging him a little bit. So, Ryan Montgomery, and this is something that we kind of feel that this is what this program is all about, is we've got to make sure you guys know what's going on with all the big targets and the incoming talents to the University of Georgia. Now, Ryan, I feel there's a lot of stone-cold lead pipe locks on Georgia's commitment board right there. You have to put Ryan Montgomery there as well as part of that. But I think, to use kind of like language you hear right now around the locker room or at a stadium or inside a press box or on the sidelines, I feel like a lot of people, even DawgNation, even a guy like me who covers the team, I think we got to wake people up a little bit about Ryan Montgomery, because I think people have been sleeping on him. I think he's a lot better than where he's rated right now as the number 14 overall quarterback prospect in the class of 2025. So that was number 4, and I'm going to use this as a clear bridge into segment number 5 here on DawgNation Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. And this is Ryan Montgomery's trainer. Now, a little background on Brad Maindler. He's an Ohio-based trainer. He's sent now 3 guys to the Elite 11. Probably his best, most well-known pupil is former 5-star Drew Allar, now the quarterback at Penn State. But I asked Brad about Ryan's game and do we have it right, or are we missing something there with Ryan's game? And he starts bringing up names like Julian Juju Lewis. He starts bringing up some of the best prospects in the country. Really interesting DawgNation conversation here with the quarterback trainer for Ryan Montgomery. He's been working with him for 2 or 3 seasons now. I found it to be a very interesting conversation. Let me know what you think after you see it on Before the Hedges.
You feel like, I don't know, narratives are tricky, but I think Ryan has evolved into, and I don't know if it's fair, it might even be inaccurate, but I think more people think of him as like the film rat, the smart, the guy's going to make the right throw, and you don't hear enough of him about natural thrower or elite arm talent and stuff like that. Do you feel like that gets lost with all the evaluations over there, that Ryan actually has a very good skill set besides all the intangibles?
Oh, yeah, God. I mean, he is an intangibles guy. You know what I mean? Like, he's got an obsession. He's got an obsession for wanting to be great. He loves the film. He's all about ball. But, man, he's got elite arm talent. Elite arm talent. I don't think there's anybody better in the country than him.
How would you describe Ryan? How is he different than all the other achieving alpha, very confident QBs that you see and you work with?
Well, how he is the same is it's like an obsession around the details and being great at this. Mm-hmm. It's a healthy obsession. I like to call it a healthy obsession. And there's just more of a maturity around, okay, these are my gaps, and this is what I need to do to fill those gaps, right? Howie is so that's a similarity. Another similarity is just pure arm talent. Like I said, he's got top velocity. He's got the ability to put the ball where he wants to with great spin. It was getting that to happen. I call it best first and throws. And we would like to get 9 out of 10 throws be our best first and throws, right? It's got the location that we want it, with the spin and the right amount of speed, right? And be able to do that 9 out of 10 times. And I think Ryan was, under that number, probably 6 out of 10 a couple of years ago. Now he's, 7, almost 8 out of 10. Like, by the time he gets to Georgia, you're going to have an extremely polished quarterback, I think, in terms of how consistent his ball is. Because if you see, like a Carson Beck, insanely consistent with where he puts the ball on his receivers. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. Like, stands out for you the most out of a really strong skill set here.
Yeah. I mean, I would say velocity 1, location 2, and then I do arm talent as half the equation is the consistency to make the easy throws and then the ability to make oh-my-God throws, and that's Ryan. I'll tell you a story about Ryan. So this would have been back in April of 21. I was at a camp that was run by QB Collective, and it was called The Preview, and it was the who's who of 24, 25, and 26 QBs. So, Juju Lewis was there, Julian Sand was there, C.J. Carr was there, James Davis was there, Luke Promenoke was there, Colin Hurley. I mean, it was a packed group. And nobody knew about Ryan at that time. And it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday camp. I was a counselor, I was a trainer. This is obviously when I was, I was early in my time with Ryan, but nobody knew about him. He went there, and during that 3-day camp, I just saw him morph into this kid who was like, oh, wow, like, I'm as good as these guys, and I can be really good at this. And it's interesting. I've seen those situations before because there was so much talent there. Kids will either step into it, right, and own it and embrace it, or they shrink. and he just totally stepped into it. And it's really using that as sort of a backdrop on why he picked Georgia. Like, he wants to be, he wanted an elite program like Georgia because he knew he would get pushed. He knew he would be competing against the best. And it's just the way that he's wired because it brings out the best in him. Again, some guys really step into that. They get bigger. Other guys shrink in those moments, and he's one of those guys who gets bigger.
And somehow, I think all of that, maybe the rating at number 15, that's why I'm glad I've got your thoughts here to put another viewpoint out, even in front of our readers that really love Ryan, because they kind of think he's like Rudy Rudiger or something, the heart of the champion that's coming in here, going to wait 3 or 4 years, and, they don't associate these terms with Ryan yet. They elite thrower, all this stuff, and I that's what I'm very happy that I got a chance to reach out to you about, because it might reset the narrative that they're still getting a dude that's going to come with the red and black.
I laugh because I think your use of Rudy Rudiger there was perfect. People are thinking like, oh, he's this gym rat, and he's going to be one of the those guys who grits it. And no, this dude is really freaking talented. So I think Georgia fans in the program are going to be pleasantly surprised what they got there.
Interesting stuff. All right. That's one of those things where, we try not to just report the story and tell you who's committed and tell you who's visiting, but really kind of peel back the layers a little bit right there. And I think it's very interesting how maybe there's a lot of things. Again, Ryan has 5-star intangibles, but did you hear his quarterback trainer? He talked about elite thrower, elite arm talent. He talked about, I asked him about, hey, does the whole world just kind of view him wrongly through the prism of, is this another Rudy Rudiger, like the guy that tries hard, the guy that's going to win over the Georgia coaches with effort level, persistence, and doing the right thing with a high processor ability and high IQ? And I think Brad, he really just kind of put that conversation where it needed to be, shared his thoughts about Ryan. Again, he kind of feels like Ryan is a lot closer to being the number 1 quarterback in the country than the number 15 quarterback in the country. So good stuff there. Great stuff there. Interesting interview there with Ryan Montgomery's quarterback trainer, a guy that's probably seen him throw over 2,000, 3,000 spirals. So if you want to know, if you want to pop the hood and really know a lot about Ryan Montgomery and his delivery of the football, his kinetics, his energy flow, it's kind of funny. You get a quarterback trainer there talking about mechanics and release points and hip rotation and energy flow, and it sort of feels like you're in college physics class or something like that. But really good stuff there from Brad Mainler right there. Really appreciate his time, especially coming off of an Elite 11 performance where Ryan Montgomery really showed out, really balled out. So, guys, Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Thanks to everybody for hanging out. If you're just joining us, you've missed the DawgNation conversation with Bryce Davis, the 4-star edge out of Grimsley, North Carolina. You've missed official visit watch with all the guys that are going to be in town this weekend for a loaded official visit weekend. We've also talked about all things Ryan Montgomery, and also probably the earliest one we've ever did. It is a watch list for the 2026 class. I mean, it is so exciting. My IFB's popping out because of all the things buzzing in my head that I wish I could tell you about the 2025 official visitors and also the 2026 early targets list right there. But we're in the bridge of our program. I think it is Miss Mansell's favorite part of the show because she wants us to drop the question of the week on you guys. And this one, guys, makes you think a little bit, makes you want to put on your thinking cap a little bit. What has been the best recruiting class of the Coach Kirby Smart era? Now, starts at 2016. Kirby only had like a month maybe to put that one together and kind of retain a lot of the Mark Richt commitments, Jacob Eason. And then, Isaac Nauta was a guy that they had to finish the drill with there. Ben Cleveland was an anchor commit in that class, but you keep going. Richard LeCount, 2017, Jake Fromm, DeAndre Swift, 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22. Now, I don't think anybody's going to come up with an answer like they think the 2024 class is, but it could be. But for me, I got a couple of answers. I got a couple of answers that I would accept, but I'm very curious to see what my producer extraordinaire, our producer extraordinaire behind the glass, Miss Kaylee Mansell, might think. CKM, what do you think? You got an answer for this? What comes to your mind about that topic?
I might be a little bit biased because this was the year that I graduated high school, but I feel like 2018 is a strong one to be. And we have to lay the precedent for what this is. It's not how they ended up, it's how they began. So you've got guys like Justin Fields, Jamari Salyer, Zamir White was the big one of that class. But you look at the numbers, all the 5 stars, number 1 rated signing class of 2018. I'm going to go with that group just based on what they looked like on paper.
Kaylee. You know what? If I was grading that response question there, I'd probably give you mostly credit there, mostly full credit there. I might dock you a few points because, again, if we're playing Family Feud and this is like the number 1 answer on the board, I think the 2020 class has probably surpassed the 2018 class. And what I mean by that is basically everybody in the 2020 class, for example, they have 2 national championships. Now, the 2018 class were the groundbreakers, the foundational class. They set the standard, which has since been bought by Texas A&M. I'm allowed to say that, right? Since been bought about the number of 5 stars in one class. Georgia had 7, which was a record at the time, but that class saw some attrition. Guys like Luke Ford, of course, Justin Fields, Otis Reese. But that was the class that you were so happy for at Lucas Oil Stadium because it was Zamir White. It was Jamari Salyer. It was Quay Walker. It was a lot of guys that hung around and basically broke the drought with what they came to Georgia to do. Got to throw in James Cook there. Got to throw in Chris Smith, too, as well. Those were guys that were part of changing the national historical perception about this Georgia football program under Kirby Smart. Really good stuff. But now you kind of compare that to 2020. I'm sure people are kind of populating the comment section with their thoughts right there. But you look at 2020, and there's Keely Ringo, there's Jalen Carter, there's Broderick Jones, there's Cedric Von Pron Granger, there's Ladd McConkey, and I think maybe the deciding factor would be a guy like Carson Beck. Now, Carson Beck basically does a little bit better than what he did a year ago. And I think Georgia is right in the middle of the playoff. I think they're playoff finalists. I think they advance through the college football playoff, and then they get into maybe a slobber knocker there with Ohio State in the national championship final in the ATL. But for me, I think what you're seeing with the 2020 class, I kind of counted up. I looked through them when I was kind of formatting this question, and I was like, I think there's like 9 amazing Bulldogs that are in. I mean, amazing, stand out. DGD or All-SEC or All-American or draft pick that I would say hit the mark on their career or surpassed their career expectations in Athens. But I went through really quickly, and a guy like Carson Beck, for example, can still get better. And I think the 2020 class has like 10 guys in there. So that was food for thought. I thought it was a very meaty question. Kaylee, do you have a response? I don't want to go full DawgNation at large here, but what do you think about – were there any other classes that came to your mind besides maybe the one you chose and then the 2020 class?
Honestly, I think this past one will go down as one of the greats. I know it's hard to judge it because the transfer portal and NIL is going to change how many of them actually stay, but I think that 10 years from now, we'll look back on the 2024 signing class and say, how in the world did we pull that off?
Yeah, might be 6, 7 first-rounders in that class when you look at guys and how they could perform during their time in Athens as well. Good stuff there. Good question of the week. Now, let's move on to our Before the Hedges. What do we call it this week? We call it the Mario and Luigi. This is what we put together. These are the staples of each week's show. You got Ryan Montgomery, Bo Walker, Thomas Blackshear. Again, pretty cool here. Bo Walker is an official visitor. Ryan Montgomery is an official visitor. Thomas is going to come a little bit later, I believe, in the wide receiver weekend on the 14th. Mason Short, official visitor this weekend. Elias Williams and Ethan Barbour. It's like Kirby and Coop and Angela and Logan, all those people in the recruiting office, and Miss Christina, they're going to try and get all the commits here this first weekend out of the gate so they can be very, very persuasive. That's the offensive side of the ball. Let's take a look at the defensive side of the ball here. You've got a lot of stuff here. You've got Darren and Kennebong going to be in town. Jaden Perlotti going to be in town. Stephon Shivers will be coming a little bit later. That's your class breakdown on offense right now. Looking on the other side, moving forward, the recruiting snapshot, not a lot of change since last week's show. 3 out-of-state commits, 6 in-state commits, 9 commits total. Georgia's class ranking is number 12 nationally at the time we taped that show. Folks, fear not, fret not, because Georgia, when they get a lot more than the 9 commitments, they're going to end up number 1, number 2 in the country. Essentially, depends on a 5-star here or there in terms of whether they move up to number 1 and go back-to-back with the number 1 recruiting classes as well. Again, the lone 5-star is Elias Williams. Georgia is still cleaning up with those homegrown dogs inside the state. So you got your breakdown, you got your snapshot, you know what's left. It is TT time for the 2025 class. You saw 2026 earlier in the program. You got Dijon Lee. Again, very tough fight Georgia will have there with Alabama. Zaire Addison out of Tampa just dropped the top 9. Georgia was in his top 9. I firmly believe Georgia is a lot higher than number 9. Jalen Morgan, we started talking about him and writing about him recently on the pages of DawgNation.com. There's that Gibson fella, going to be an official visitor this weekend. Cortez Smith set to make his announcement on July the 20th. Big Oos out of Lee County, the Lee County Trojans. Man, this guy's been prolific in the state of Georgia. I remember watching him roll over everybody his freshman year, especially that game against Warner Robins. And I saw him last year going up and down the field on Colquitt County down in Moultrie. Dontrell Glover, his decision's July the 1st. Bryce Davis, his decision, again, mentioned him. He's a great part of our program tonight. July the 20th, his official visit comes after he goes and sees both Duke and Clemson in June. Moving on, top targets list, Juan Gaston Jr. in town this weekend. Travis Smith in town this weekend. C.J. Wiley going to come in that wide receiver weekend on the 14th. You've got Zayden Walker. He's in town this weekend on his official. Guys, can you get any bigger than this? Justice Terry, he is going to take his official visit to Georgia. I've been led to believe later in the season the same for Elijah Griffin. And then that's that Sanders fella still standing strong at number 1 on the top targets. Now, we got a little busy here with just off the list because new names popping up. We're trying to figure out a little bit more about the defensive side of the ball. Let's start off with a young man out of Carrollton, Georgia, Shamar Arnaud. He just picked up an offer from Georgia. He was the young man that was committed to Tennessee, but decommitted from Tennessee while he was in the middle of his Georgia unofficial visit earlier this year. Javon Boggs is going to make his decision on July the 3rd. Nick Brooks, Javion Campbell, really like that player out of Kentucky. Michael Carroll, he's another guy that's going to be an official visitor that weekend. Marion Dye, is he one of the Georgia's chances to bring him in the class at the edge position? Kalen Edwards, former Auburn commitment. Christian Gass out of Eastside High. Christian Garrett out of Prince Avenue Christian. Lagonza Hayward in Lyons, Georgia, Toombs County. Georgia has renewed interest there. Bo Jackson, already taken his official visit. Trey McNutt, look for him to visit maybe later in the summer or during the regular season. Going down the list, Andrew Purcell, that's a new name. He just recently out of Enterprise. He's teammates with Eric Winters down there, but Georgia recently offered the defensive back out of Enterprise High School, and then also Clemson recently offered. Todd Robinson, you hear a lot about him, going to play more running back and wide receiver for Valdosta this fall. A lot of his film looks like quarterback. Taylon Taylor, again, another guy that's going to be on his official visit this weekend. Maybe we should have put OVs on all these guys that are on the top targets list that are visiting this weekend. And you know what? Somehow I think Georgia has had some staying power with Auburn in that Eric Winters recruiting process there as well. Guys, hope you've enjoyed Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. We've tried to give you a lot of stuff here, a lot of stuff on the 2025 class, preview of 2026, because that's what we do here on Before the Hedges, brought to you by Kroger. Guys, don't know what else to say. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for hanging out here on another Wednesday night, live Wednesday night Before the Hedges. I'm Jeff Sentell. That has been your intel, and we'll see you guys again on the pages of DawgNation.com.